Meeting will come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Berard, Funderburk, and Levine present.
We have a quorum. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. First item on the agenda is opening remarks by me, and I have none. Before calling on the General Manager for her opening remarks, I'd like to move that we defer, if a motion is necessary, item 20A until a subsequent meeting. Is a motion necessary for deferring a management report, Council?
Yes, sir.
So move. Oh, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It is deferred. Report or briefing by the General Manager.
I have none today, sir. Thank you.
Comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations.
I did want to say one thing and recognize my fellow commissioner, Jill Berard. I had the honor and pleasure of attending the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils last week in Mixer, and I think that we're blessed to have Commissioner Berard on our commission. She's a force in the Valley. She's respected by all 30 or 35 neighborhood councils, and I saw it right there at the meeting. And she was also surprised and given an award of significance for her contribution with Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Council. So I want to just recognize her, and thanks also to the DWP staff and management who came to support the event.
Thank you very much.
I didn't attend the event, but I want to associate myself with Commissioner Funderburk's remarks as to how much we value Commissioner Berard on our commission. We have no public comment cards. Comments from ratepayer advocate on agendized items.
I've attended that event in the past, and I'm sorry I missed it this year.
That'll show you.
I don't have any general comments. I'll have some specific follow-up comments on things as they come up.
Thank you. Before seeing if any items on the consent calendar should be removed, let me entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 3rd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. So for consent agenda items 7 through 14, do any commissioners wish to remove any of those items from the consent agenda?
No.
Is there a motion to approve items 7 through 14?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. We move to the regular agenda. The first item is item 15, transmittal of preliminary fiscal year 2015-16 LADWP budget to the LA City Council.
Good morning, President Levine, Commissioners. I'm Neil Guglielmo, and with the Budget, Rates, and Financial Planning Group, the Department of Water and Power. What you have before you today is our preliminary budget, our draft budget, as it were, for the coming fiscal year. So we will come back to you again very soon in May with another presentation for our final budget, and then later in May for the approval of that final budget. But at this point, it's for our preliminary budget for 15-16. For this preparation period we've gone through in developing this budget, we've very much looked at the direction from the mayor's office on the back to basics approach. And in keeping with that, we wanted to identify for us what we saw as our core priorities, reliability being one of those, rates, keeping our rates competitive, equitable, and sustainable, resources that are necessary to provide water and power services for our customers, as well as regulatory compliance. And lastly, and probably even more important, is the service element, restoring that public trust with our agency, and performing benchmarking and performance accountability throughout all of our operations. As I mentioned earlier, this is our preliminary budget, so what we'll be asking from you today is the approval to transmit our Power and Water Revenue Fund receipts and appropriations documents and other transmittal pages to the mayor and the city council. And as I mentioned, we'll be coming back to you later in May. Our priority outcome areas, which align with Mayor Garcetti's 5 priority outcome areas, include providing excellent service and competitive rates for our customers, continuing investment in our critical infrastructure, transitioning to sustainable LA water and energy supplies, increasing system reliability, compliance with mandates, and leveraging our spending for the coming fiscal year to create jobs and support the local economy. And what we've done is worked with all of our organizations in the agency to develop budgets that align themselves with those specific directives. The kinds of investments that we're making in our infrastructure, in compliance with our mandates, all go towards those specific items and the creation of jobs. And I do want to mention a couple things quickly about customer service. There's a lot of efforts that have been underway in our department to improve customer service levels. And specifically, you're going to see investments in this proposed budget in additional staffing for our customer call center and the customer contact centers to maintain the low response times that we have now to customers. And we're also looking at expanding self-service options and payment solutions for our customers and providing with additional opportunities for them to contact us, such as the Customer Service Saturday opportunity. The CHR requires that the Board of Water and Power Commissioners adopt an annual receipts and appropriations budget, and that we transmit this preliminary budget to the Mayor and the City Council by March 31st of each year. Both the preliminary and the final budgets need to be presented and transmitted in the format used across the city, as I said, which is also referred to as the receipts and appropriations. In our financial planning process, we're preparing a budget plan that covers 5 years, fiscal years 15-16 through fiscal year 19-20. However, the board is only required to adopt a budget for the coming fiscal year, one fiscal year at a time, so the fiscal year of 15-16. A brief overview of the items we're going to cover in this presentation this morning is a slide on the cost savings that we've realized since 2012 and that we see going forward, some recent accomplishments in the water and power, development of our 15-16 budget, key expenditure plans and recommended budgets, a staffing plan by system, a timeline, and some next steps. For our cost savings, we exceed a 3-year cost reduction target that was established back in fiscal year 11-12 of roughly $459 million. The actual savings realized over that 3-year period was $466.9 million. Beyond those efforts that were made, we've also realized ongoing savings as a result of new labor contracts, saving $456 million over 4 years and $5 billion over 30 years. We have also realized lower cost financing for water and power projects, which will save us approximately $267 million. And with the formation of the corporate performance unit, benchmarking and performance metrics will ensure cost efficiency and accountability as we proceed forward. Some recent accomplishments that we have realized, this is in the area of the power system. As you can see here, we have representation of solar, Charge Up LA, the rebuilding of our local plants, the ones through cooling, as well as some very large projects, the Beacon Solar Project. I'm going to focus just really quickly on the expanded EV charger program, the Charge Up LA, offering $750 for residential customers and $1,000 for commercial customers. And as the end of 2014, we have provided over $2 million in rebates to support 1,300 chargers. That's the 1,300 charges covers since the life of the program in 2011. A residential customer can receive an additional $250 rebate if they installed a dedicated time of use meter. and we've also retrofitted about approximately 250 legacy chargers on city property, many of which are accessible to the public. This next slide, what you'll see here, is really focused on our efforts in energy efficiency and in reliability and infrastructure upgrades. One point that I'd like to make is that if you look at the heat storms that we went through in 2007 as compared to the heat storms more recently in 2014, the 2007 heat storm, we had approximately 674 transformer failures. With the reliability program, however, in 2014, based on that progress we had made, we realized a 72% decrease in the number of transformers that were out. It's very significant. When you look at the outages for those same heat storms, the outages lasting over 24 hours decreased by 99%. So I think what this goes to show you is the more we can invest in reliability and infrastructure, it really pays dividends for all of our customers. So the next slide is water quality and sustainability. There's been quite a bit of progress here as well. If you look at the picture for the LA Reservoir in the top left, you'll see that quite a few shade balls go into place. There have been over 90 million shade balls deployed on the LA Reservoir, and we're looking at another 6 million or so shade balls that will also be deployed. These shade balls have resulted in a 90% cut in chemical usage in the reservoir, reduced evaporation by at least 85%, and significantly reduced the formation of disinfection byproducts, or DPBs. Another thing I'd like to highlight on this slide is the Owens Lake on the bottom right. Based on the historic agreement that you have all made possible for us here, we're expected to save approximately 8,600 acre-feet, nearly 3 billion gallons of water this year, enough to serve 43,000 people, with ongoing water savings of 1 to 1.5 billion gallons per year. That's truly historic and significant for us. This next slide, as we saw with power, really focuses on the infrastructure and reliability elements of our programs. There is just a continued need for investment in infrastructure with essentially decades worth of work that needs to be done to get us the level of reliability and infrastructure that we'd like to see for our system. Turning to conservation, there's been a lot of success there as well. Since 2011, California Friendly Landscape Rebate Program has supported customers in replacing 11 million square feet of turf, saving a little over 370 billion gallons of water per year. Expanded water waste monitoring and stepped-up public education and enforcement have also gone into effect. This next slide is a follow-up to the earlier slides when talking about infrastructure. Back in 2012, we received approval from the board and the City Council for an increase in the water quality adjustment factor and a 2-year power rate, base rate increase. Throughout extensive public education and outreach, there was a lot of information shared with regards to what work was needed and how the increased revenues would be utilized. At that time, that was described as the initial chapter, essentially, of a long-term continued need for investment in our systems, both for power and water infrastructure and reliability. For the development of our 15-16 budget, which commenced several months ago, this budget is a reflection of where we as an agency feel we would need to be next year with regards to investment in infrastructure and our critical programs. The preliminary budget, which will continue to be updated and adjusted over the coming weeks, reflects additional revenues that have not yet been approved of roughly $159 million and $140 million for power and water, respectively. These additional revenues directly correlate to what the Department hopes to invest in our planned water and capital infrastructure, the acceleration of reliability programs, and increase in replacement cycles. As you can see here, our rates are lower and very competitive when compared to other agencies throughout California. Starting from the top, a resident in Los Angeles, water and power resident and customer, looking at the water and power bills combined over 3 years, if they were in San Diego, we'd be paying a little over $1,500 more over that same period of time for the same service. In Simi Valley, also paying over $1,200 more. In San Francisco, over almost $1,100, almost $1,200 more. And in Pasadena, still closer agency to ourselves, a little over $200 more for that same period of time. So we are very, very competitive with our rates now. Turning now to the Power Revenue Fund budget. This slide before you is the key expenditure plan summary. It highlights some of the major changes with regards to the Power Revenue Fund. Starting from the top and working your way down, the first 3 items are our fuel and purchase power budget. Below that, you'll see O&M, property tax depreciation, the city transfer, debt service, and at the very, very bottom, the continued investment in our capital infrastructure. A description of some of our key programs, which you'll see in the coming slides as well, is here on this page. Essentially, our power reliability program, our supply replacement program, customer opportunities, customer service, operating support, and power system general. This just describes what each of those programs are primarily responsible for. For the capital slide here for the Power Revenue Fund, what you'll see is a proposed investment of nearly $1.6 billion for the coming fiscal year. Some of the major changes within the capital funding for next year, and the largest growth, is for the Power System Reliability Program. The distribution for power system reliability is increasing by approximately $133 million. The substation is increasing by approximately $22 million, generation by 14, and transmission is decreasing by approximately 31. You'll also see a change in power supply. That's largely due to the phasing of our scattered grid repowering. The next slide is the Power Revenue Fund O&M expenditures. The O&M line above shows proposed spending of just over $1.01 billion and reflects an estimated $50 million increase over the current year approved and forecasted. The largest portion of this increase is a significant and ongoing investment in our customer service elements, the customer contact center, the call center itself, and what this reflects is increased staffing and increased expenses to support those customer service efforts. For the fuel and purchase power slide, the largest increase you'll see here, over $101 million, is for the purchase of renewables. Non-renewables and natural gas are each decreasing as they're displaced with the renewable purchases. Emissions is also decreasing slightly due to the credits that were purchased and banked in the current fiscal year. We'll now be turning to the Water Revenue Fund budget. Again, you'll have a key expenditure plan summary, which is just some of the highlights of the Water Revenue Fund budget. Starting at the top is our purchased water, and below that you'll have O&M, property taxes, and depreciation, debt service, which you'll see continues to increase, along with our capital program, which is also increasing at the bottom. Here's the key program summary for the Water Revenue Fund. As you'll see in the next several slides, these are the items that represent each of the major programs or investment categories. The Safe Drinking Water Program, Water Infrastructure Program, Local Water Supply and Remediation, Regulatory Compliance in Owens Valley, Customer Service, and Operating Support. For the capital expenditures, the graphic that's shown here shows an capital investment of $884 million proposed for the next fiscal year, representing an increase of approximately 22% over the current year approved budget. Some of the major changes there include increases for the Safe Drinking Water Program, specifically trunk line improvements and reservoir improvements, water infrastructure, significant investments in water recycling, and groundwater remediation. For the O&M slide for the Water Revenue Fund, the proposed funding for the coming fiscal year is $450 million, representing an increase of approximately $28 million or 6% over the current year approved budget. Some major changes there are increasing groundwater pumping and water conservation, some O&M for distribution reservoir and water quality control, and again, as we saw for the power system, continued investment in customer service for the customer call center, the contact centers, and staffing resources needed there. This next slide is the purchase water slide. The preliminary budget assumes normal hydrology and was set before the runoff information was available. The final budget for 15-16 will increase from the amount that's shown here in this graphic and will reflect the most up-to-date runoff projections. We're now going to turn to staffing by system. This slide will show you the current occupancy for the department as of this month, March. That's 9,100 filled positions, of which you'll see the numbers there for joint, water, and for power. And then for proposed for the fiscal year 15-16, there are 92 for the entire agency. Some important things to note here, the investment of additional positions really is focused on, again, enhancing customer service, sustainability, economic development programs, some key programs for water and power, and succession planning. And we do have quite a number of staff within the department that would be eligible to retire in the coming fiscal year, approximately 2,200 based on their age and years of service. It's roughly 24% of the workforce. And this last slide here essentially is the bottom line of the next steps. We still have 2 more months to work on the final budget for the coming fiscal year, 15-16. We'll be coming back to you in early May with a presentation for the final budget, and then again at the end of May for the final approval of that budget. This final budget will balance the priorities that we've mentioned in this document earlier, and we look forward to having further conversations with you regarding the development of the budget. This budget, as I talked about earlier, does reference additional revenues as we move forward, and we'll be coming back to you in April and May with more information with regards to rates and with the budget.
Thank you very much. This is a very, very helpful and thoughtful and well-prepared presentation, which we appreciate very much. Do commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Barat.
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive report. And I'm really, I'm very gratified to see the priorities and the core initiatives that you're following, particularly investing in customer service, which I think is a number 1 priority, and the new hires, which will take care of a lot of the complaints that we've had. I wanted to ask you about the investing in infrastructure, I guess it's investing in upgrading, because so much work has to be done. So how do you plan in the budget the percentages or the priority for infrastructure?
You know, that's an excellent question. As you know, we have quite a bit of infrastructure that we have to maintain, and to get the infrastructure to the level we'd like it to be, that we aspire to be, is require, frankly, decades of continued investment. So working with our colleagues in power and water, really to prioritize where those investments in infrastructure spending would have to occur, what the time frame would be, what projects would be ready within the coming 5-year period that we're looking at right now. Of course, their capital spending goes out 10 years and potentially even beyond that as well. So I really looked at prioritization of the spending, when projects would be available, compliance with mandates as well, and trying to line up the availability of the resources to get that work accomplished as well, because to get that capital work done requires that we have crews and staff to get that work accomplished, and in some cases have contracts and their support as well to get that done. So that's really what this budget reflects, is the timing of those projects and the prioritization of those projects.
Well,
I might add, Commissioner,
yeah.
on both water and power, they have done system assessments. You'll remember the Power System Reliability Program, where they went through all the infrastructure. They ranked the condition of the infrastructure, and then we overlay that on the timeframes as Neil outlined on getting the crews, when we can get out in the streets, the severity of the problem. So those are all built into the budgets. There's certainly flexibility, and there has to be, because some investments, as you rightly note, they can't necessarily wait, or else we'll get a failure, and then it costs significantly more to repair something after a failure. But they're both based on physical assessments of the system itself and where the money needs to be invested.
You know, I also was looking at the water mains and the condition of the trunk lines and the pipes that have burst. Based on this last year, are you putting more money into the budget to take care of that for the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you were to look at the capital expenditure slide for the water system, I'll turn that really quickly here. One of the largest areas of increase you're going to see is the Safe Drinking Water Program and water infrastructure. Within the Safe Drinking Water Program, there's roughly $76 million worth of new additional trunk line investments. And within the water infrastructure program, there's roughly $30 million more for distribution mains and, again, for trunk lines. So there's significant investment in the capital program looking forward to actually specifically address those issues.
Based on last year's budget, have you increased the amount that goes into the budget for infrastructure?
Yes, actually, those numbers I provided to you just a moment ago reflect the actual increase, not the total spend for trunk line improvements, but the increase in that spending. That $70 million, $76 million of increased spending, and the 30 for distribution mains and trunk lines is all new additional funding on top of the funding that we have in the current year-based budget for that work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Funderburk.
Yes, I want to echo Commissioner Broad's comments about the priorities, and I had a specific question on economic development that, as it relates to the turnover that we're anticipating with the workforce. I wanted to know if we have a plan or budget for reaching out into the community for some of these jobs that are coming up, that we're you know, a quarter of our workforce is rolling out. I'd just like to hear that, and if I know that from some other people at DWP, it sounds to me like there is a plan, but maybe ask General Manager Edwards if she could comment on that and how we plan on making these jobs that are coming up available and doing extensive outreach into the community for it.
Typically, we have not had a shortage of interested people, certainly. One of the advantages is that the city's personnel system is now moved to neogov.com, so that everyone, they are now being able to make all of that information available online, which is very healthy. There also is a lot of outreach in the community. Specifically, DWP had started that utility pre-craft training program that allowed for people to actually receive some of the training in advance to help them be successful on these civil service lists. Some of our remaining challenges aren't so much the outreach, it's the speed of the examining process, how long it takes us to basically bring people on, the length of time. Many of these are 4-year apprentice programs. So you have to keep feeding the pipeline very consistently.
How much did that pre-craft training program cost? Does anybody know how much
I don't have a good handle on that. Do you guys?
know,
it was about
If
30
not, we
people
can-
or something, or
We can get back to you, but I do remember
Yeah,
the number
let us
being...
get back with some more concrete information on that.
yeah, I'd like to watch that a little more closely, just as things roll out over the next year or two. Particularly making sure that we're investing in things like the pre-craft training program.
Yes, sir.
The other observation comment I had, looks like on Owens Valley for the regulatory compliance numbers on page 34, that the numbers leaped in 14-15. But we were, I believe the general purpose of this was to not just reduce the amount of water, but over time reduce the costs. So are there any other costs that we're saving as a result of this? For instance, avoided legal costs. You can't put that as a number, what you're saving, because it's just what happened in the past. But the path that we are going down in that case was one of, from what I remember, $5 to $10 million at least per year of legal fees. Is that something that it's not captured here, but I just want to get a comment on that.
Yes, so actually, if you look further up on the slide on page 34, on the capital portion, regulatory compliance in Owens Valley, you see that the approved budget for the current fiscal year is $167 million, and the proposed budget for next fiscal year is $80 million. So we are anticipating some significant savings. What you don't see here is the next several fiscal years. So as you look at that 5-year plan, you'll have a better sense of how the budget will be changing for Owens Valley, based on the historic agreement that was reached.
Thank you.
Does the ratepayer advocate have comments or questions?
We will work with staff to give them our comments in preparation of the final.
Excellent. Thank you very much for a superb presentation.
Thank you.
Let's see, what is the motion that you are seeking at this point, which you mentioned at the beginning?
Correct. The motion would be to approve the transmission of the receipts and appropriations and other budget documents for both the Power Revenue Fund and the Water Revenue Fund. We have 2 resolutions, one for each.
Is there a motion of those 2 resolutions?
So move.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. They're approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We move to item 16, amendment to Department of Water and Power sponsored health plans, resolution effective July 1, 2015.
You can probably take 16 through 18 together, sir.
Okay, let's do that. 17, IBEW Local 18 Amendment to Health and Welfare Plan effective July 1st. 18, Healthcare Service Agreements.
Good morning. Shannon Pasquale, HR.
HR?
So what we're asking this morning is for the board to approve, first and foremost, the resolution amending the health plans resolution that the board established in 1986, which kind of sets forth a number of things that are going to take place for the open enrollment period. We're also asking that the board approve the resolution amending the IBW's health and welfare plan, which was effective back in 1997. And then the final thing that we're asking the board to approve is the health and dental contracts for United Healthcare, Health Plan of Nevada, Kaiser, Delta Dental, and United Concordia. If you have any questions specifically about any of the healthcare contracts or anything, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Are there questions on any of these healthcare resolutions or plans?
Well,
Commissioner Broad.
I have a comment. In reading this, I believe that I'm right that this has all been negotiated during the labor negotiations, and that this is kind of what we've had is kind of a done deal, and what we're voting on is a done deal.
Well, what's been negotiated through the years are the health and dental contracts for our employees through the labor negotiation process. So right now, what we're asking the board to do is just approve the contracts for 2015-16 with the understanding that we're pretty much tied in for the next 4 years through September of 2017 with our existing labor contracts in terms of being able to make any fundamental changes to the plans.
I think that's basically what the commissioner was saying.
Yes.
All right, so then my comment is then certainly during the next negotiations in 2017, that I think that we need to do some very serious negotiation to bring down the costs and to negotiate for cost savings. And I think I'd like to go on record saying that's what I'm going to be looking for in the next round of negotiation.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions on these three resolutions?
One brief comment.
Yes.
For next time. There's an experiment that the city of San Francisco tried in their last round of health care, where they negotiated with Blue Shield for a fixed profit margin of 2% on the overall plan with pass-through of other expenses. And since their experiment has moved forward, it would be worthwhile to visit whether that's been successful there and whether we might consider something like that with one of the existing providers or another provider going forward.
We can certainly look into that.
Is there a motion to approve these three resolutions that are in your board book?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? They're all three passed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to filed item, Financial Services Organization Monthly Report.
I have no additional comments at this time.
Good report. We've deferred Management Report 20A, and we move to Management Report 20B on Phase 1 benchmarking.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Peltola. I'm the Director of Corporate Performance. I have Lisa Yin as our Principal Utility Accountant. She's going to be moving the slides for me. This is the initial benchmarking analysis that has recently been completed. Go to the next slide. If you recall, last June we were talking about this. There was 3 phases of benchmarking that we're going to proceed with. This is the first phase that you see on the yellow box, which is the high level, peeling the onion 2 layers, if you will. We worked on this with the PA Consulting Group in cooperation with PwC Strategy and it was formerly Booz & Company. This is focused on the operational and capital expenditures on a functional level. There was quite a bit of rigor that went into this, and you can see on page 5 of the board letter some of the examples of what we did. But what you'll see in each one of these is a first quartile, which is the most favorable, the lowest cost, and the fourth quartile, which is the highest cost. And we'll go through each one of these in a little more detail. Go to the next page. This is on the electric side. This is peer group number 1. So we will compare against the metrics for this peer group, as well as, if you go to the next page, a peer group that is more than 100,000 customers that is solely in the West. And this is for the electric. All of the water will be against American Water Works. Before I start, one thing just to talk about, we worked extensively with the RPA on what were the right metrics to analyze and present. And you can see that in the board letter. We talk about making sure that the metrics, because there's a tremendous amount. We actually have about 122-page presentation with a lot more data than this, but these are really the key metrics that we feel are important that the board as well as all key stakeholders know about. Go to the next page. So this is the executive summary. We'll talk about this in detail, but I want to just give the summary findings, and as we go to each one. So first is total O&M on the power system. This is one of the most significant metrics, and that benchmarked favorably in the second quartile, essentially in the median, so 50% above, 50% below. Reliability benchmarked very favorably in first and second quartiles. Financial metrics, while we're in the fourth quartile, a lot of that demonstrates that we are not taking in too much net income or too much revenue given our costs, and I'll show you some specific metrics on that. Customer service O&M. Our O&M costs, Commissioner Barad, to your comments, our O&M costs are first quartile relative to investor-owned utilities, which means it's low cost. That may not necessarily be what we want. We may want to increase that. But there's some interesting paradigms on that, on investor-owned utilities versus publicly owned utilities. But two things we do have that we need to work on going forward, and we're actually already in process of doing, is uncollectible expenses, so bad debt. This was before implementation of Syscon. Our bad debt was at 0.7%. And as you'll see, that is still fourth quartile, and it's since gone up some more. System losses, so how much energy we generate, how much we bill for, the difference between that, that's also very high. There's some reasons for it, but there's also some things that we need that merit further analysis. Distribution O&M, that's in the fourth quartile. That's higher. We'll talk about that, and we'll relate that back to our infrastructure spending, which, again, going back to the budget presentation, as you put in newer infrastructure, that should lower our maintenance costs. And then A&G costs. So the investor-owned utilities take all of their pension and benefit costs and put it in one bucket. So it makes a comparison, and when we do that, that puts us in fourth quartile. So I'll show you some of that, and we'll talk about it. And just a general comment, we'll have this on both water and power. What our consultants have told us is, just looking at Bureau of Labor statistics, we're somewhere between 13 and 33% higher just to bring people to Los Angeles to work. This is not LADWP specific, but just in our fields, it costs that much more for people to come to the Los Angeles area. So the next page, page 6, this, as we've discussed many times, our electricity rates are very competitive. And here you see between residential, A1, our small commercial, A2, our medium, and A3, our large, we're competitive with all of our surrounding investor-owned utilities. We're lower in every case, with Southern California Edison getting close on the A2 and A3, but we're lower. However, going to the national on the next page, on page 7, when you look at this on a national basis, and if you look on the left-hand side, you see residential electric rate, and you see the red line. So that's where our rates are. So, for example, against the large utility companies, our rates are 14.4 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's at the bottom of the third quartile, almost in the fourth quartile. And then you see going over against the western region, now we're actually in the fourth quartile, and all the way across, we're in the fourth quartile. This is really caused by a couple of things. One is, while California clearly is the leader in environmental, those things tend to increase costs. Once through cooling, replacing all of our power plants, energy efficiency, RPS, all of that will drive our costs up. And also, as evidenced by today's weather, our weather is milder, so we tend to sell less energy, which is good. And we also have energy efficiency, but that drives rates up as well. But that's a factor that we've taken into account as part of this benchmarking. On the next page is total O&M. So one thing, again, back to the rigor on this, we've lined this up with our financial statements. So our audited financial statements, we look at what is the O&M per customer. So if you had one financial metric that you could look at, this would probably be the metric. And as you can see, we are roughly at the median. We're in second quartile, right near the median. We're at 625. This is approximately 70 to 75% labor-driven. That's where O&M comes from. And remember, we have no COLAs for the contract that was approved by your board, no COLAs for 3 years, so as other utilities will tend to go up, we will tend to get better because our costs will stay close to the same. Now, this is total. On the next page, on page 9, this is the breakout of that total O&M, which you see up above. But now we've peeled the onion one more layer, and you can see we have generation O&M, transmission O&M, distribution, customer service, and administrative. And you can see the relative where we are in the quartiles. But just a brief description. So generation, that's the power plants to generate the power. Transmission, so if you ever drive to Las Vegas and you see those large power lines going over, that's all transmission, transmitting the power from one location to another. And then distribution, that's the poles, cross arms, wires, transformers, the stuff in the neighborhoods. That's the distribution level. So we'll go through each one of these, but it just shows you we're good in some areas, we're good in generation, we're transmission, we're pretty good, customer service. While the costs are low, that may not be necessarily what we want, and then we're higher in distribution, O&M, and A&G. So go first to generation. As we talked about, this is generation O&M per operating capacity. We're in the first quartile, so this is a pretty good metric. Go to the next one. Transmission. We're right around the median. For large utilities, we're in the top half of the third quartile. For Western region, we're in the middle of the second quartile. We have a newer system and a bigger system, but our O&M for this is pretty much in line with where you'd expect it. Next is distribution O&M. So this, you can see, is not, it's in the fourth quartile. So this is being driven by a number of things. One, it's driven by older infrastructure. If you have older infrastructure, like having an older car, you're going to spend more on maintenance, and that's what we see. Also, the higher O&M does favorably impact reliability, which we'll look at. As we spend more money, all the questions you were asking about infrastructure, is that capital spending? And I have some metrics to show you where we're not spending enough per our benchmarking. That will lower this O&M, so it'll make it better. It's something we know we've got to work on, but we've got to do some more analysis in this area. Next is customer service. So this, from a pure cost perspective, shows that we are first quartile. And this is against a mostly investor-owned utility peer set. So if we look at page 55, we'll bring it up on here. We also did the analysis against APPA, which is American Public Power Association. So when we look at that metric, now we're in third quartile. So while we're first against the investor-owned utilities, we're actually in third quartile, almost fourth quartile against publicly owned utilities. It really leads to a business philosophy between what you may see in a municipally owned, where it's, if we spend more money in distribution, we have better reliability, there's no reason to call. Versus on the investor-owned, it looks like they spend more money in the customer service, making sure the customer service experience is better, maybe a little less in distribution, which we see in our metric. Somewhere in the middle is probably where we need to be, and that merits further analysis, which is one of our findings. If we go back to page 14, this is administrative in general. So this was for fiscal year 12-13. So this was before we had the new MOU. And this, again, is driven mainly by the pension and benefits. So you can see our number is $262 per customer. The one thing that most of these utilities have, they don't have the pensions as much. So their Social Security cost is actually distributed. So we took that out, which you see in the black line, which would put us in the edge of the third and fourth quartile with the Western region if we remove the amount that's tied to Social Security. This will get better as the new pension tiers take effect. Neil talked about 24% right now of our employees can retire. Commissioner, you were talking, as we bring those new employees in, they're going to be, by the MOU that was approved, on the new pension tier. Over a 5-year period, we have 40% of our employees that can retire. That will definitely lower this cost, because all those new employees will come on the lower pension tier. The next slide, page 15, this is capital expenditures. So on the left-hand side, this is our capital expenditure per depreciation expense for fiscal year 12-13 by itself. On the right-hand side is the 3-year average. So if you look at this first quartile, that would be good. That meant we spent a lot of money in capital that year, and this is for generation, transmission, and distribution. However, we know in fiscal year 12-13, this was mainly driven by the 6 combustion turbines that were installed in Haynes as part of the once-through cooling. So the 3-year average, you can see we're in third quartile. Now, this is, like I said, generation, transmission, and distribution. If we go to the next slide, page 16, this is purely distribution. So this is what the Power Reliability Program is about. And what you look at here, our spending during fiscal year 12-13 was lower. So the questions that we had in the prior item, hey, how much more are you spending? And while the questions were about water, this is on the power side. This shows that we're not spending in line to really replace our assets like we should be. That will be part of the upcoming rate action that will be proposed later in the year. And you can see even on the 3-year average on the right-hand side, that's third quartile, bordering on large utility companies on fourth quartile. It points to we need to spend more on infrastructure. This will also lower that distribution O&M. Page 17, going to reliability. So our reliability is first quartile as far as interruption frequency. So that is how many times per year does an average customer be interrupted. And on average, our customer goes a little over 2 years without an interruption. The duration is 64 minutes, again, between first and second quartile. That's good. That higher distribution O&M will drive that, but it's that combination of lowering the distribution O&M from the capital investments that we need to make, but not impacting this reliability. This reliability is something we want to maintain. Next is safety. So lost time incident rate. You look at the lost time incident rate on the left-hand side and the 1.69. So this is against investor-owned utilities. However, if we look at that same 1.69 or 1.7 and we go to page 57, so there's the same number against American Public Power, and we're second quartile there. So there's no conclusion we can draw other than we know the public power and investor-owned utilities appear to be a little bit different on the safety aspect, on that lost time incident rate. Certainly, no matter what, we want to drive that rate down. Safety is very important, and it's something that we need to work on. But there is some difference in reporting between investor-owned utilities and publicly owned utilities. Go back to page 19. So this is one of the areas, transmission and distribution losses. So you look on that left-hand side of page 19, and our total losses is 13.1%. That's very high. Now, there's two parts of this. One is transmission. So for LADWP, we have Intermountain Power Project, which is 40% of our power. 10% of our power is Navajo, and 10% is Palo Verde. All of that power is coming from the other side of Las Vegas. So we're going to have a lot of losses for that. It's still economically the right thing for us to do, but it's 8.5% of our transmission losses. However, on the right-hand side, where you look at just distribution, so this is just in the neighborhoods, it's still quite high at 4.6%. So that last bullet there about efforts are underway to mitigate any potential non-technical line losses such as non-billed customers, fraud, and energy theft. We are pursuing a contract right now. It's out in the RFP process to get some third-party experts that will be looking at power coming through each one of our distribution stations, comparing it to our customers' loads, and seeing, okay, where is there a difference where we can go out and try to find that. So we're going to apply some logic to it and see if we're able to reduce those losses down. It should be something less than that. Page 20 is our financial statement ratios for power. So that net income per revenue dollar on the left-hand side. So when that says fourth quartile, that just means you have less money. So this is the amount of revenue left after operating expenses, debt costs, city transfer, all those things. We basically have 4%, 4.3% of the revenue is left. That's very low, and it indicates our rates are lower given our costs relative to our peers. Some of it is due to investor-owned utilities. Just by very nature, have return on equity, they're going to be a little bit higher. But it does show our costs seem to be, or that our rates seem to be in line with our costs. Uncollectible accounts. So this will be there'll be some more discussion about this that David Wright will be doing. But uncollectible, this was in fiscal year 12-13. So prior to the Syscon implementation, it was 0.72%. So 0.7% of our total revenue. That was too high then. It has grown since then to 1.7%, and that's something that we're attacking as well. We're getting a third party that's going to come to advise us on policies and procedures of where we can get that somewhere in the 0.3 to 0.4% range. Even when we looked at other publicly owned utilities, they also had that 0.3% range. So it's something we need to get down. That's the power. Is there any questions on power? We can come back, obviously. Next is water. So water on page 21, again, this is the summary. The total O&M is second or third quartile, and that includes $56 million of O&M in support of the LA Aqueduct. That's something most water utilities do not have. They either have purchased water costs or they don't have to import the water, certainly on a national level. Our reliability metrics are in the second quartile. Our financial metrics are in line with industry peer sets, although we're issuing a lot of debt for all of the regulatory requirements and the infrastructure requirements. And then customer service O&M. So this is the water portion of what we just looked at. That was in a high it was first quartile. And you'll see this is, again, against many publicly owned utilities. We're fourth quartile for the very same year. So it's a difference in philosophy, and it merits further analysis. And the LA Metro wage rates, we already talked about that. So page 22 is the regional water rates. Our rates are very competitive. You can see Pasadena is just a little bit below us, and this has very high purchase water costs, but we're very competitive in a regional comparison of our on benchmarking our rates. On a national level, on page 23, on the left-hand side, you'll see that most of the other peer set, they do not have to import water, and their customers don't have to irrigate. Having grown up in Connecticut, you don't have sprinkler systems out there because they tend to freeze and break in the winter, and there's plenty of rain that comes in the summer. In California and in the western region, you do have to irrigate, and that's reflected in the western region where you see our closer comparison. We're at the bottom of third quartile with $48 versus the start of the fourth quartile at $54. One thing just to remember also, in that comparison of 47.56, roughly 10% of that is tied to the environmental mitigation costs. Commissioner, you were asking about getting that reduced. That $48, roughly, somewhere close to $4.70 is roughly the cost we have for the environmental mitigation at Owens Valley. Water system O&M is third quartile on a cost per customer basis. If we exclude the LA Aqueduct, which again most utilities don't have, we would be one quartile better, so we'd be in the second quartile. So not too bad when we compare against all of our peer set. Customer service costs, we talked about this, fourth quartile. Very same costs, except this is the water portion. But most of the American Water Works Association is going to be municipally owned utilities, and it points to that different philosophy and something we need to do more analysis. We need to look at staffing levels. And this also, I think, is a reflection of the publicly owned will tend to be, Marcy has pointed out, engineer basis, and I won't. We've had it confirmed as we were talking through this. Engineers, being one, believe that if you have really good reliability, there won't be any reason to call customer service. That's not probably the best way to do business, but that kind of reflects as what you see on the publicly owned. Financial metrics on page 26. The debt ratio, so this is the portion of capital funded by debt. We're in third quartile at 61% when compared to large utility companies. We're in fourth quartile with just the western region. Larger utilities are more comfortable issuing debt. If you use the smaller utilities, which will be in the western region, they're not as comfortable. Even though it may reduce costs, they're not as comfortable, and that's what's reflected in these numbers. However, what matters on the right-hand side is the debt service coverage ratio. And you can see we're second quartile for both, which is the amount of money we have to make our debt service payment. We're at a little under 2.2. Our financial planning metric of the rates that you will see coming up towards the next couple of months, we're planning at 1.7, which you can see will put us at second and third quartile. That tells us we're planning roughly at the right numbers. Page 27 is real losses for water system. We're at 3.5%. This is good. It means our system, despite many high-profile events, overall we're actually pretty good compared to our peer set. And then the reliability metrics. This is total unplanned service disruption per customer. So how many times does a customer go out per 1,000 customers? We're second quartile on this. So this is near the median, tells us we're relatively okay. That doesn't mean we shouldn't invest in infrastructure, because Marty has the task of all of his infrastructure getting much older of when Los Angeles was built, and there's a lot of infrastructure that will require replacement. Planned this is just how many times does a customer go out when we're planning on doing it. As we ramp up the infrastructure program, this metric will get worse, but right now it's pretty good. And then the next steps on page 30, and we've talked about a lot of this, We're gonna go out and conduct a citywide stakeholder outreach campaign. We'll be going to neighborhood councils. We're going to be going to other key stakeholders to talk about this. We will then go with a more in-depth analysis, which will be phase 2, and solicit feedback. We've done that already with the RPA. And we're working with them. And then just in summary, what we've talked about, the energy losses, we have a third-party consultant that's coming in to assist us in that. Same thing with uncollectibles, as well as uncollectibles, where we have a program that David Wright will touch on going forward to reduce down our AR as well as our uncollectibles. We have to do more analysis on distribution O&M, and that's something we'll do in phase 2. The interrelationship with customer service costs, and as A&G, we've talked about that. We need to look at that further, but the new MOU has certainly taken good strides for that. And then page 31 is the benchmarking schedule. So the yellow box is what we just went over. We will start in phase 2, which is, as we talked about, staffing levels, costs on various sub-functions, other things that as we solicit the impact. And we're going to be doing that at the second half of 2015, probably into early 2016. And then phase 3 would be the business process improvement studies. We've actually started some of those that we talked about on the uncollectibles, the energy losses. So we're actually in process for some of that, but there will be additional ones that we do. But everything goes towards the MOU because many of the changes that we can implement have to go through the meet and confer process.
And then at the end of that, we'll be in the first quartile and everything.
You may not necessarily want to be in the first quartile.
Thank you very, very much. This is very helpful, and I appreciate that it's really an overview in the very beginning, and that there's a lot more to be drilled down upon, but it's a very helpful framework. Do commissioners have any questions or comments?
I do. Thank you very much. Very, very comprehensive. I just want to ask you one thing.
Sure.
I know you have the next steps, but now that you've done this study, what jumps off the page at you and you say, you know what, we've got to do this?
I think what really jumps off at me are the two things that we're getting contracts for immediately, which is the bad debt, the uncollectibles, and the system losses. Those are two things that, to me, we really need to work at. And then those are more immediate steps. I think in the longer term, it's that relationship between distribution O&M and customer service O&M. It was surprising to me to see that difference in the investor-owned utilities. When we first got that, we had to go through numerous times, and to the point of going and looking at their FERC Form 1 for Edison and all that. But it certainly looks like a different philosophy that they have, where they spend more in customer service, less in distribution. But overall, like I said on the top of this, the first one we really want is that overall O&M. And our overall O&M is pretty good, but we got to look at the mix underneath.
So when you go out in outreach, and you mentioned that, and going to neighborhood councils, what part, this is very comprehensive and sometimes very technical. What do you want the community to know about this?
I really want them to give input to me as we go into the next phase, deeper phase. Where do they feel we need to go look at? When I looked at the first thing on, let's just take generation. Generation also being first quartile, well, we certainly want to look at it, but we don't want to dive in depth there. I think we really want to go to the places, customer service, distribution, where we can make meaningful changes that will lower our costs and improve customer service.
That's good. I think that's where you have to go.
Yeah.
Commissioner Funderburk?
I did have one question, if you could hit on it the next time
Sure.
you come back, and this doesn't need to be answered now. On the water benchmarking, we only have one city that's close to us, San Diego and San Francisco. It'd be helpful to have some other cities that people might be able to connect with.
Sure.
You go to whatever neighborhood council, and they care more about what the people in Santa Monica or whatever are doing, and I assume we compare favorably. I'm glad that we're focused on customer service and continue to do so. I kind of see this as It's like Apple, the customer experience. The investor-owned utilities are obviously spending a lot of money on marketing and getting their customers to eat higher rates.
Right.
And when we actually have the lower rates.
Right.
And so that's a competitive advantage I think our city, our agency needs to promote, get out there, and really work on our customer experience. And so I look forward to being the Apple of power and water companies, Ms. Edwards.
Dr. Pickle.
I want to congratulate the DWP team for getting this first phase done. Benchmarking was proposed in the 2009 Industrial, Economic, and Administrative Survey by the Controller as required by the Charter. The 2012 rate review and the Office of Public Accountability's conclusions were you need to move forward on benchmarking. That was adopted by the Council. And we were also pressed for my office to do the benchmarking, and we always said it needs to be adopted, it needs to be owned by DWP. And this team has picked it up and done a good job on moving this forward. Now, of course, as ratepayer advocates, we always want a little bit more, but the key components have been included. There's some supplemental slides in the materials that look at relative O&M cost relative to payroll dollars, in terms of payroll dollars, in terms of customer and asset use. I think you've seen enough. There are no earth-shaking, no surprising components out of that. But going forward, it's important to understand what triggered those comments in 2009 and in 2012. And that was that O&M cost trends were not favorable for DWP relative to their peers. While we're better, while our overall rates were lower than any of the other major California utilities except for Sacramento, we had a trend we needed to correct. And we're not really correcting it until we're through phase 3, but we've taken the major first step.
Thank you. We will break for lunch and the closed session items, and we'll come back and complete the management reports after we do that. Council, what are the magic words you'd like to provide us for the closed session items?
The board shall report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention of every member present thereon in accordance with Section 54.957.1 of the California Government Code.
Thank you. With that, we'll do that, and then we'll return.
Hey, Jeff?
It's funny because when I had the radio on this morning,
We're recording.
it was like 7 o'clock this morning.
They were wrong. The polls didn't close.
We are recording.
The polls just closed in Israel 15 minutes ago.
Are they 9 hours?
10. Yeah, they keep them open until 11.
We're recording.
Wow.
We're recording.
Okay, we're back in session. And we are moving to the one remaining item, which is item 20C, Customer Service Information Remediation Progress Report. That's a fancy name for something.
Thank you, sir.
Madam General Manager.
Today's presentation on the customer services remediation progress will be made by the head of the power system, Dave Wright.
Thank you. So we'll, in this presentation, go over some background of the customer information system, where we are now and some of the state audit response, and where we're going. So as some of the background, as you know, this is a 40-year-old customer information system, which I'll abbreviate as CIS. There were some significant issues and fear of system failure before we went live, and there are 30 interfaces that connected to this system, which made it very complicated to convert. There were a lot of concerns with some new programming that was required on the old CIS. Some of them listed up there: solar support, expanded online services, and demand response smart grid. All that had to be made to a 40-year-old system. There was concern about would the system continue to operate after that was being made. So instead there was a conversion to a new CIS, and this is the old system. And you're not meant to read this, but this just shows all of the interfaces and how complicated that system was, how many feed-ins and how many interfaces there were, and just a very complicated system. So the system went live in 2013. Department really was not provided the correct information concerning the number and severity of system defects and system readiness to go live. And the system that we were on was called CC&B, or Customer Care and Billing. So Customer Care and Billing is Oracle's version of CIS. Department experienced numerous negative consequences. And as you know, our call wait times increased, we had delayed bills, unread meters, estimated bills, and we were understaffed, and we could really not handle all of the increased customer contacts that happened initially. The defects were so severe that council directed the department to stop collection efforts, essentially stop terminating service on November 2013, and that duration lasted 3 months for commercial customers and 6 months for residential customers. Subsequent to go live, the department was very forthright about the issues and the steps we've taken to correct them. We hired over 250 customer service reps and meter readers, established a training academy, and since that time we've decreased call wait time to under 5 minutes on average. It was over 35 minutes. We've increased our phone staff on certain days, and one of the things is people might not be aware of is Mondays is a very high volume day, so we shift staff now to Mondays so that we can keep the call wait times down, as well as the day after a 3-day weekend and the 1st and 15th of the month. Then they shift onto billing and collections and other things the other days. We've now added that to our recording, so we tell customers, if you don't have to call today, you might want to wait till a Tuesday, till Friday. We extended our hours. We added some Saturday hours, offered a late payment fee forgiveness program, added credit card payments, and did a number of other things. We are now at a point where we read 100% of the meter reading routes daily. We have a 95% reading performance level. The only meters we're not reading are those that we can't get to, maybe a locked gate or a dog or a car's parked over the water meter. Because that's gone down, our estimated bills have gone down as well to 5%. We've resumed collection activities. We, in the summer last year, hired a consultant to come in and do a root cause analysis. That report was presented to you in November of 2014. We continuously review bills for accuracy and are in the process of looking to hire a third-party consultant to also do a billing accuracy audit. And we formed a remediation team managed by an internal staff that is looking at identifying all defects that we can and resolving the known defects in a timely manner. This bar chart just refers to the customer service division staffing. It shows us ramping up. We will be adding about 200 staff by October of 2015. October is a peak month for phone calls. What this also shows, unless we manage this very carefully through attrition, our number of staff go down. So we've got to look at that each year in the future so that we can attain acceptable call wait times and acceptable customer service levels. This shows our call wait time. Again, you can see the purple bars. Those were after we went live, and they were very significant. If you then look at the red bars to the left, they've come down. The red line across that page is our goal of essentially a 3-minute wait time or less. You'll notice February was a little over. It's because there are less business days in February than there are during a normal month, so you're handling a lot more calls during a smaller period of time. And so it did go up a little bit over our goal. This is estimated bills showing that it's been at 5% for a number of months. This, again, from a target of looking at this, there's an overall concept. We measure our metrics in what's called key performance indicators, which are similar to a benchmark. And what you can see in all those green areas is we're meeting our goals there. The goals are often set at industry average when they can be. And you can see all of those are targets, and current performance are equaling where they should be, except for those 2 items in the middle, which are unbilled accounts over 120 days. Our goal would be to have none, and we've got 10,000 accounts that are unbilled over 120 days. And then the other one is arrears greater, or basically accounts receivable over 60 days. And we've got a significant amount there. The bottom line is the item that Jeff spoke to earlier about unbilled energy usage, or getting this consultant to come in and look at how much energy is going into a distribution station, how much is going out, compare it to the bills, and see if there's any unbilled usage that could be from energy theft or accounts that don't have, or meters that don't have accounts attached to them. We're going to focus on those red areas a little more in a minute. During this time, or the fall, the state auditor came in. Really, they followed the same kind of approach as the root cause analysis. The state audit echoes many of the findings from last summer's root cause analysis. They did make a great recommendation that we completely agree with. We should create a board oversight committee and informational reports for major IT projects. And so that will be something that we'll be doing in the future. The state auditor cited a budget to actual number that was inaccurate. They cited that we budgeted $87 million for implementation. That was an amount put in a budget about 6 years ago. It didn't anticipate any internal staff cost or some other outside professional expenses. The cumulative budget has actually been $173 million. Cost to date has been $188 million. There's an important basically a contract that will be coming to the board in May, and it's for some additional funding to fix critical system defects, and that'll be probably in the $18 to $20 million range. Some of that remediation, some of that detailed remediation effort is that we have a stabilization team that is remediating all the known defects, and we classify those into critical, high, medium, and low. There's been several thousand defects that have been corrected since go live at all different various levels. There's about 100 critical defects left. The goal is to remediate all those critical defects by the fall of 2015. It does say approximately, because you might fix 10 defects and then find one that's critical after you fix the other 10. So that number can be in flux a little bit over time, but there are about 100 right now. Then after that, there's several hundred high, medium, and low-level defects that need to be remediated. And again, we look at that in a priority order. So accounts receivable, one of those items in red on our key performance indicator chart. There's a lot of accounts receivable over 60 days. But it still only equates to about 7%, 7.1% of our annual system billings. That amount over 90 is pretty significant in that it includes over $100 million in closed accounts. So those closed accounts would normally be sent to collections. However, because we believe we can attach them to a current active account, we've retained them, and our own staff will be working those over the next several months. And then if we can't attach them to an existing account, at that point they'll be sent to collections. So while it is higher than expected, it's because we haven't sent a number of accounts to collection agency. There were some misperceptions about what was going on with our billing. The vast majority of our 1.5 million customers were billed correctly. We've acknowledged there is a limited number that experienced some billing issues following go live. There's been a lot of attention on those few issues, but we're working with any customer to fix those issues. A small percentage did stop paying, and we're ramping up the collection efforts over those customers who just stopped paying their bills. We did limit those disconnects, and we have that higher level of AR, but we're ramping up our accounts receivable collection efforts. Those bills are owed by the customers. We're adding resources. We're lowering the thresholds, which I'll go into in a moment. And we're going to be determining the ultimate amount of uncollected funds to be written off after this process. But even when we get to that point, it'll be manageable within the existing budget. We have healthy reserves. And in fact, in the state audit, the state auditors say LADWP has very strong financial health. We will be reporting to the board every 30 days on those collection efforts so that you can see us working down those old accounts receivable. I talked about the thresholds. For commercial collections, our threshold levels are equal to what they were before conversion, which is you owe more than $250 longer than a period of 19 days, and we start the collection effort at that point. We moved commercial down first because there's a smaller number of accounts, and those accounts are at a higher level and can impact our accounts receivable greater. And we have premier and key accounts that can provide some support in going after any unpaid amounts. Residential collections are at $900 and 60 days past due, and we're lowering that every couple of weeks down, and we think we'll have that at the pre-conversion level of $250 and 19 days by July of 2015. There are a number of accounts that were never billed, and this shows over 120 days how many accounts have not been billed, and there's almost 10,000 that we need to send bills out on. You can see about 300 are over 365 days, and those are being worked first. In fact, since this slide was prepared late last week, we've notched that down by another 20 accounts. And we've actually taken about 300 accounts off this list just in the last 3 or 4 days. So at an amount of about 300 or 400 a week, which is the anticipated work effort, those should be finished by about 3 to 4 months. So the goal is to get all these billed, and then all of the accounts on payment arrangements, because most of these customers will want some sort of arrangement to pay them that money back. And that equates to about $30 million in collections that we'll see. We've got sort of where we're going. We're still looking at those customer service reps on a monthly basis, how many we have, how many we need, how many do we need to fill, what the attrition rate is. We're working with our employees because there is some burnout and some also on our customer service rep side with all these phone calls that they've worked a lot. There's some burnout. There's some stress. So we're working with them as well, and also working on employee safety. Obviously, a lot of customer stress as well through this process. We're developing a meter strategy, which is essentially a cradle-to-grave review of where's the meter, what accounts is it associated with, is it being billed, and again, doing that distribution station review to make sure that we are billing all the accounts and there's no energy theft going on. And then the remediation efforts are going with a new remediation team on an ongoing basis. The next steps are kind of the summary is to maintain those good KPIs, or key performance indicators, at acceptable level. Focus on those areas that really need attention right now, which is the remediation of critical defects, the collection efforts on delinquent accounts, reducing the unbilled accounts, and then expanding some customer service options. We are doing a J.D. Power benchmarking study so that we can see also where our customers want us to focus our attention on. And then as remediation allows, meaning the system needs to work before we implement any additional options, but we'll be introducing level pay, transitioning to a much greater degree towards monthly billing, expanding payment options and self-service options, and providing some more outreach about our programs and services. We are also finally looking at changing the mayor's dashboard, again, to present those areas that we're focusing the most attention on. So we continue with wait times and bills awaiting payment, but we look at how many customers are on payment plans. With those delinquent accounts, what are the values between 30 days past due, 60 days, 90 days, and then how many unbilled accounts still exist over 120 days. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? How's the transition to monthly billing going in the pilot areas?
In the pilot areas, it's going well. And those pilot areas are very geographically centric, mostly in the Owens Valley.
Do we have any, that began when, in the past month or two?
That began several months ago.
Several months ago.
But again, rolling it out on a much more expanded basis, we'll be looking at that as we look at the accounts receivable and the system and the programming and the meters. It's all kind of interrelated.
Well, as you deal with complaints, and commissioners get complaints every now and then, I did want to thank a member of either your staff or certainly under Marcy, Keisha Washington, who worked with Marcy and the rest of the CSR team on solving an issue on Crenshaw near the Expo line, and they just bent over backwards, and I want to make sure that Keisha and your staff, Marcy, are that it reflects that they went beyond the call of duty, I think, in that instance to support a customer.
Thanks.
I'd like to chime in also and compliment, I'm not exactly sure who, but your staff, I mean, look, this has been obviously exceptionally challenging on multiple levels, and in my, I've had more experience than I wish I had with regard to some particular items, but those have exposed me to seeing just how responsive our staff is. And this report is very encouraging. I mean, we were really behind the 8 ball in it, and I think that we're getting out of that rear guard action. I just have one question, and that is, you did focus on filling these customer service positions, and it's been my understanding that there are various bureaucratic obstacles to doing that. And I'd be curious to know sort of where that stands, and to the how well are we able to fill these positions?
That was really challenging at Go Live. Over the last several months, there was a program started where we're essentially doing continuous recruitment for these entry-level meter reader and customer service reps. So we have been able to hire about every 60 days a new class to bring them in, train them, and move them up. So we've have had assistance with getting those a candidate pool identified and tested, put on a ballot list so that we can pull those candidates off that list. So
if I could add to it, too.
Please.
The two biggest obstacles in the beginning were getting the exams held and establishing a list, and it took months before we actually had candidates that we could use. We had made some emergency appointments to customer service rep, but as you know, you can only stay an emergency appointment, and then once there is a list, you have to give them all back. In fact, that was one of the reasons for the bump in call wait time last month, is we had to give, it was 40 or 50 employees weren't on the list. We couldn't reach them, and so we had to let them go. Now that we have lists established, and Sharon, nod at me, we have them established for all the major feeder classes in customer service. So field service reps, customer service reps, meter readers. Now that we have those classes, they've done projections on attrition and projections on the need, how many to hire, and they have a staffing plan. And as Dave pointed out, they're going to be hiring in blocks. The other limitation was training space. There's only so many tables and phones and chairs to do these, train these people up. I think when was the training academy was finished 2 months ago? Roughly. So now we have a training space sufficient to continue to bring these people in. And so my hope is now we've conquered most of the staffing constraint issues in the call center. We still have a ways to go, particularly hiring field personnel, but the big issue now is managing attrition, because I forget the number in your staffing plan, but you think you'll lose how many next year? Yeah, I mean, it's of a volume that's significant. 150 to 200 people will attrit out. So you have to hire constantly just to break even, let alone add. So that's actually more of a corporate concern as well. Our attrition numbers are large.
Is that attrition or turnover? Is the 200 every year? Or is that attrition based on getting to the end of?
We actually do a monthly review of all the positions. You know, who retired, who came in, was it a net gain, was it a net loss, and we'll schedule something with the board at a later time, because I think it really deserves a broader discussion, because attrition is one of the things that's so negatively impacting us, not just the churn, but the fact that we're losing tenured employees who know what we're doing, and so we're having to approach training and journey level programs differently. It used to be it took you 20 years to move up the ranks. Now you can have someone who was on the bottom and they can be close to the top in a couple years. And the associated experience and drag takes a longer time sometimes to develop, so we have to adjust our training programs for that. But let us come back and give you more of a presentation on the aggregate staffing impacts in the plan, because I think it is worthy of talking about more.
I do see one person who deserves our gratitude, and that's Sharon. Are there other questions or comments? Thank you for a very helpful report. If there's no further business, this meeting will conclude.